Well, back to work. Okay, so I'm just forging ahead. This is shot number 0071. So what we're going to work on here is 0072. And this is Mr. Big. So one of the things I'm really liking with Blender 2.8 is the inking process is frankly vastly superior to any other app that I've used. And you got to go with what works. So I really like the feel and the look with the with the ink. Now this is actually kind of an interesting example of what I'm talking about. Actually, I'm going to change the name of this block to Mr. Big Head, and I'm going to go ahead and put his body on a different level. Now, one of the nice things is we can go append, file append, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Blender 2.8 2D animation template, grease pencil, basic GP. So I'm just going to pull that in. So now we have two different grease pencil object templates, if you will, but they have all the same layers, same palettes, same everything. And as my workflow develops and I find ways to be even more specific, like I'm sure that there are a few materials that I'm probably going to add to my basic template that I can then bring into any Blender file as many times as I need to. One thing you want to understand in terms of the difference here, it's a little non-intuitive. In other words, it seems like at first glance I have to, if I pick another grease pencil object, the other one disappears. Well, that's because the one grease pencil object points to one grease pencil data block. So what I need to do then is hit tab and go into object mode, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new grease pencil object. So now there's actually two of these in the scene, and this one I'm going to point to my basic GP and then change the name to Mr. Big Body. That's that. So now we've got them both here in the scene, and I wonder, one thing I guess I could do is, yes, we can simply, the one that I'm working on, if I want to get it out of the way, I can just hide it in the outliner. So now one thing that's kind of interesting here is that I changed the name here to Mr. Big's Body, but up here in the outliner it's still listed as G pencil and stroke. So I don't know if I need to change the name here. So that seems a bit strange to me, and it's probably just something I don't understand in terms of the data management, but it seems to me that if I change the name here, which it's an annotation, so I guess, I don't know, I could kind of see the point. So the actual object is Mr. Big's head now, and this could be some kind of annotation that says more for whatever reason. You might want to do that. Okay. One thing I want to do right now while I'm thinking about it is I want to change the location of his anchor point. So I'm going to say there's my cursor. We want his head to rotate on that point, and okay, so we might have a little bit of a thing here because I'm going to have to remember how to set that. I believe it is object, set origin. Yes, origin to 3D cursor. Okay, so the fact that it was actually rotating where it needed to is kind of a coincidence, actually. So now let's go to Mr. Big's body, and I'm going to say Mr. Big's body. We should actually make it rotate. If we're going to think in terms of rigging, we really should have it probably something like that. So again, in the object menu, set the origin to 3D cursor. Now, if I make Mr. Big's body a child of Mr. Big's head, in which I have no idea if I can do it this way, probably can't, no. So what I want to do is take Mr. Big's head, and then probably somewhere in the object properties, it might be over here, you ought to be able to decide what the parent is. It says lock to object. I don't know if that, yeah, I guess that'd be it. Mr. Big's body. So if I now grab Mr. Big's body and rotate it, I would expect Mr. Big's head to travel along with it, and it doesn't. So apparently locking to an object is not the same as parenting, and I'm just going to delete that because why am I going to have that like that if it's not actually going to be parented? So what I'm looking for, and maybe I need to scroll this down. Yes, probably. There's probably something here. One thing I gotta say I really want to explore more is this blend modes. Blend modes for the grease pencil layers. That's kind of cool. Someone, I guess it was Jim P. Animation, had pointed out that you can also clamp any pixel outside underlying layers. That's kind of like in Krita when you lock the alpha, so which will come in handy later, I suppose, for doing shadows. But probably relations, yes, that's what I wanted, and that's going to be Mr. Big's body. So now if I select Mr. Big's body, okay, that doesn't make any sense because that is Mr. Big's body. Sorry. Got to go back here and grab Mr. Big's head, and the parent should be Mr. Big's body. Okay. And just to make sure the relationship is correct, yes, it is. Alright, so now we can grab Mr. Big's head and kind of put it back where it was. Okay, that's interesting. So I'm in object mode and I hit the G key. And so yeah, this is kind of interesting. The center didn't change, but what seems to be a little out of whack is the location of the strokes. So that tells me that probably you want to be sure, I could be wrong about this because I'm sort of intuiting how I think this works under the hood. I think it's probably the case that you want to make sure if you're going to do rigging, you probably want to set up your relationships before you start doing a bunch of drawing so that things don't jump around. So I think if I go into edit mode and hit the A key to select all, then I can move my strokes back to where they need to be, and I would expect that that would get us back to the situation we're wanting. So now with Mr. Big's head, if I hit rotate, what's strange right now, I'm not sure, it's parented to Mr. Big's body, so if I select Mr. Big's body and hit rotate, the Mr. Big's body data block, which does not have any drawing associated with it, and it looks like its center point is over here, even though I told it to be here. Not quite sure what's going on with that. I guess the way we could find out is to simply draw a circle or something. So I'm going to hit Control Tab, go into draw mode, and just, draw. Okay, and I'm just going to draw something so that I can now get back into object mode, and I hit rotate, and it does appear to me. Let's do median point here. I think it's important. Let me see what's going on here. No, it did put its median point here, so I'm not really actually sure what that is right there. And maybe that's just an erroneous stroke. Let me see. Let's go into draw mode. Boom. And try to erase it. That doesn't work, so let's grab Mr. Big's head. And it doesn't seem to be a stroke. So I'm not sure what that is. kind of weird. Oh, I know what it is. It's this. It's the first default. Yes, that's what it is. Watch, if I hit G. Nope, that didn't work either. Oh, I've got to be in object mode again. So, you know, jumping around in and out of this mode and that mode is important, but I'll bet you when I hit G right now, that little dot's going to move. And it doesn't. So I'm not sure what that is. That's kind of strange. But we're going to ignore that for the moment. Okay. And just get back to work. Draw. And okay, I hit draw. Seems like it's a little slow on the draw because it didn't really it did not really I'm trying to think and talk at the same time, so forget it. What I want to do is go back to Mr. Big's body and do a little bit of inking, and oh, I got the wrong color. Sorry. Let's close this back up again. And we want charcoal ink. Now, why is that 001? Oh, I know why. Probably because it was imported, so that means we've got multiple copies of it. That I can live with. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just kind of bring this down like this. And go like that. Now, what should happen if I go to Mr. Big's head, I see what's going on here. Important. When you, and this is just my inexperience with Blender 2.8, if you grab one of these grease pencil blocks in the collection, it does not select it down here. So that kind of seems like a bit of an oversight, in my opinion. But because we are grabbing the... Well, I guess, I don't know if that makes sense or not. I'm grabbing the other object. Let's go into object mode. I'm a little confused here on what's going on. So I'm going to hit tab to edit mode and then tab to object mode. And if I grab Mr. Big's body... Oh, now that is working. Okay. So now if I hit rotate, what's really strange to me is that it doesn't rotate now. So I can certainly understand why it would rotate with the parent object, but it should still rotate on its own, around its own center point. So there's... And according to the data here, it is rotating. So why the strokes aren't rotating, I don't know. It's almost like they've gotten decoupled somehow. So that's weird. That's actually kind of on the weird side. Let's stick with Mr. Big's head for a moment, since I do have a skin color. Let's see what happens if we do a fill here. In our tools, we want to be in draw mode, and then shift spacebar fill, and we need to be in the... And by the way, I made a mistake here. I drew these lines, doggone it, in the sketch layer instead of the lines layer, which is for the ink. So that's my mistake. That's okay. Okay, so that worked as advertised. What happened was, well, what we have now is we got a situation where these two are in exactly the same spot. And by the way, this needs to be filled too. So let's just get that done right now while I'm thinking about it. Okay, so it would appear that what we need to do here is probably set this to... Okay, hold on. Okay. Control Z. Actually Z, because I've got the hotkey changed. Okay. So now when I do that transform, it is not transforming the... And that's cool in a way. What I'm seeing right there is actually kind of cool, especially if that's animatable. So what's being transformed here in this panel is not the grease pencil object, it's the layer. So if I want to move the whole object, and that might somehow speak to the problem I'm having with translation, that that's still only affecting... Okay, I definitely have some stuff to learn here. Because what I did was I parented the sketch layer. That's what's going on. That's what's going on. Okay, sorry for the confusion, folks. But I don't mind really playing this out in real time because maybe it helps you to understand better what's going on, just like it is me. Okay, so we don't want to parent the layer, although there is a time to do that. It would make more sense probably to parent the layers to one another depending on what you're trying to do. But what I want to do is I want to parent the object. So let's first fix the obvious problem that we have. Probably the best way to do that would be to lock the fill layer so that I can then go into edit mode, select all, and then let's just carefully move this back to where it wants to be so that it's not got a bunch of gaps in it and things like that between the fill and the ink. Okay, so now I'm in edit mode and I hit Alt A. I wish it was still the way it used to be where you hit A to select all and then A again to deselect all, like a toggle, but that's alright. So now, because I set the well, okay, what I would guess that I need to do then is go back to object mode, and if we're going to parent something, so I'm just going to say, see, I don't think view lock is it. It could be that I have to use a constraint. I kind of hope not, but this would seem to make sense because I don't see where else we would parent the entire grease pencil object. So just for fun, I'm going to try that. Okay, that's interesting. So when I turn that off, okay, so we're still in object mode, so let's grab this object and see what happens. And it doesn't take the head with it. So this, and those of you who are more knowledgeable about Blender 2.8 than me will think I'm a blithering idiot and wonder what the heck I'm thinking here, but I guess the classic way to do it would be click this, then hit shift and click this and just hit control P. I mean, that's the way we always used to do it, right? And that worked. Okay, so I'm maybe thinking too hard here. Okay, so now what has to happen is we want to make sure the body is behind. So what I'm going to do is in my Z space, nope, wrong, not my Z space, in my Y, can't do that because I just parented the head to it. So I need to grab the head and make the head a tiny, tiny fraction closer in this direction. Just a little bit, just enough so that it's where it needs to be. Now I can see where this is going to present problems. It's kind of an interesting conundrum. Definitely a change from Blender 2.79. Here's why it's going to be a problem. If I am drawing and filling basically on the world origin, in other words 0, okay, so if I hit Shift S, I can put the cursor to the world origin, which will put it at 0, 0, 0. If I'm going to work on, this is really important, this is the kind of thing you don't want to forget. I'm sure of it. If I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is correct. If you are going to work with Mr. Big's body, you want to select Mr. Big's body and you want to go cursor to selected. And the reason for that is it's actually twofold. The smaller reason is it just helps to visualize where the origin of the grease pencil object is, because the cursor is now there so you can see it. But more importantly, I'm pretty sure that if I don't do that, then I'm going to start drawing and filling and doing things in this 3D space, and then when I turn like this, I'm going to find out that my fills are actually back here somewhere or whatever, wherever the cursor was. And I would assume that to be true because I'm assuming the default for the grease pencil is to draw on the same plane as the cursor. I don't actually know that to be true in the defaults, and I don't want to go through the preferences now and try to figure that out. But let's do this just to test our theory here. I'm going to draw. What do we got here? Oh, sorry, I'm in the shadow layer. We're doing Mr. Big's body, and we're in draw mode. And now it appears that nothing is being drawn. Let me see what these are. Display, okay, onion skins. I actually don't want onion skins. I'm not a big fan of onion skins. So, okay, that's my bad. I am using the fill tool. Of course I am. I'm so silly. Okay. Just got to get used to it here. Okay, so now what I'm going to say is if I draw some shapes and now turn, you'll see that it's on the same plane. Now, if I go into object mode and put the cursor back here, you can see that the cursor is way in the back. I'm guessing that if I go back and start drawing again, what I'm going to find is no. Okay. Okay. So this is a good thing that Blender 2.8 is doing for me. It's basically protecting me from myself. And I believe this was in 2.79 or maybe sometime very late post 2.78, is the idea that the grease pencil forces strokes to stay on the same plane unless you specifically ask them not to. That's a really good thing. Super good thing. So now for my purposes, I am going to hit Shift S again, put the cursor back to the world origin because when in doubt, that's where I like it to be. So now if I go to my camera view, I should see my background image again. Cool beans. So now I'm on Mr. Big's body. I don't want to be in the shadow layer though. So now I want to check something. What if I hit all? Okay. It's only going to select all for the active grease pencil object, which is great. That's almost always what I would want to do. Now if I hit the M key, I believe I can now move the strokes to the lines layer, which is where I want them. Okay, so now if I hide the shadows, you can see it has been successfully moved. So now, just in the interest of completeness, let's go back into object mode. Right here, let's grab this, and I want to check what I did here as well. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to hit the star key with my mouse over the 3D workspace. So now the sketch layer has been isolated. Okay, so my star key is my solo button, if you will. I'm going to hit M for move, and I'm again going to move. Okay, that doesn't quite work. Mr. Big Head. Sorry, I'm dealing with strokes. So I need to be in edit mode, select all, and I want to move those strokes to the lines layer, which of course is hidden right now. And when we turn the fills back on, we can see that everything worked as we expected. So that's good. Okay, so there is definitely a bit of jumping around between edit mode and object mode and stuff like that, but on balance, not a big deal, because I think once I get used to the workflow, I will find that I tend to not have to backtrack and correct things nearly as often, I'm sure. So, excuse me, having said that, now what we want to do is we want to draw. So let's go here into draw mode. We're using draw ink, and we need to use charcoal ink, which is basically not quite black. And we're just going to make sure we've got some closed shapes. The exact spacing of it is not that important. It doesn't have to be exactly what I drew in the sketch. Okay. And that's that. So now I should also, I'm gonna go into edit mode and select all because I just did the same thing again. Sorry. because I had the shadow layer selected. I need it to be here. Okay, so that's correct. Now I'm going to go to the fills, skin, and we're just going to switch to the fill tool. So basically what I'm kind of getting at here is that normally these operations are going to be done, they're going to be stacked. Like you're going to do all your fill operations at one time. You're not going to be constantly jumping back and forth between them. So let's grab this color and change it. So now I'm going to go back up here. And we're going to make this kind of a gold type of color. We'll fine tune it later, but that'll work. And we're going to make this kind of a sort of a burgundy sort of color. Again, we can fine tune it later, but now the fill operation, what I want to do is I'm going to use the draw tool. See, I've got some latitude because and by the way, that leakage from his neck into here, you could have adjusted the leak size, but honestly, it's normally better to just go like this. Sorry, my bad. Thought I switched back to the draw tool. Okay, so what I normally do is go something like that, and that just closes the gap, and then I can fill it successfully. Okay, that was not supposed to happen. That's better. Got another leak. Okay, so that's a little strange because this was pretty definitely a closed shape. So why would that be? Huh. Okay. We'll go with it, right? We'll just go with it. So now if we turn this back on, one question I have, oh, I need to refill his neck. Okay. Sehr gut. That's about right. Okay, so now since I'm doing this on YouTube, I'll go ahead and do some fine tuning on this stuff to sort of polish it up. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to go back to Mr. Big's body, and let's use some of these other colors to just do some stuff. So shadow, I need to be in draw mode, and we're going to definitely want a shadow underneath his neck. Probably going to want a shadow here, kind of thing, kind of here. You know, it's all kind of by feel. Yeah, that'll work. I also have this shadow not filled, so that if I want to, I can just grab my pencil and use the shadow color to add some detail. Just build it up, which I really like. Okay. Let's take this material now and just kind of do what we had before. I just used little plus signs. I didn't get too fancy schmancy with it. Okay, and then I did the same thing on this, on his cloak or his robe, whatever you want to call it. Okay, that looks pretty good. Probably one there. And so now we'll switch back to Mr. Big's head. And what we need to do here is go into object mode and make sure we've selected Mr. Big's head. Then we can go back into draw mode and start fixing things up. Now, one thing we need here is an eye color. So let's go ahead and use the eyedropper to grab black, just because we want to know that the color is going to be perfectly grayscale. And then take this way up yonder. And importantly, we want to be in the fill layer. Let me check something here. Oh, they're locked. Okay, we want to unlock that. And we can come in here, and we'll just do this with the pencil. No point bothering with trying to do a proper flood fill for something like this. Okay. Now you could complain that it's not exactly tight there. So let's fix that. Let's go into edit mode. And what I want to do is, there's more than one way to do it, but I think what I'll do is I'll go, okay, here in the proportional editing tool, I want to hit connected so that it's only going to mess around with connected strokes. And now I can, oh, I'm hitting the F key instead of the G key like a silly boy. Okay, I think that, let's change this to I. What I think I want to do is solo that. So I believe Control Star, yes. Control Star solos a material for me. That's the hotkey I set up. And the reason I did that is so that I can go back into draw mode. Actually wrong. I want to go into sculpt mode. And then I believe what I want is the grabber. Actually, you know what? In this case, let's smooth it first. Let's go ahead and just smooth this a bit. That line came out pretty rough. Alright, now let's grab the grabber and just, oops, just fine tune that. That's nice. Over here, that's kind of interesting. Okay, that doesn't have to be selected for the sculpt tool to still work, so that's fine. So let's go to smooth. Once again, let's just smooth that out. Because smoothing things out is what the smooth tool is for. And I believe if I hit Control Star again, the isolation of that color is undone. Now, one thing I don't know about is what that stroke right there is. This guy's not supposed to have a scar, so I'm just going to delete that stroke. I'm not sure what that, how that got in there or anything. So, okay, so now we're on Mr. Big's head in the fills, but now we want to be in the shadow layer. So shadow layer and the standard filled shadow is what I want to start with. And now let's go ahead and make some little bit of, okay, hold on. Active layer is locked, okay. Oh, there we go. And I think I want to use the ink so that I get smoother lines. Ignore all that flashing, it's not going to matter a bit. There, see? This is where Blender kind of shines, adding these details quickly and pretty darn accurately is really pretty nice. Okay, so Mr. Big has this concept of sort of shadowing under his eyes, like he's not the nicest guy we've ever encountered. Like that. And we definitely, normally I would put the, actually I'm going to redo that. Normally I would put the mouth on a separate layer, but in this case, let me check something here. I wonder what this does. Yeah, that's still about right. Okay. So I would say probably something like that. A little bit there. A little bit there. A little bit there. And we can layer these up a bit if we want. Like so. But you don't want to go too far with it because obviously we're not trying to be photorealistic with an anime. So that looks pretty good. Yes, indeedy. Okay, so now the good thing is that we can add animation within his head, or of course we can animate his head as an object. So as an example of that, we might want to say object mode, what if, since we have the center of his head put where we want it, we could actually go scale x -1 to flip his head. And I'm going to say I'm going to flip it again. Shift X -1. I don't know if that worked. Okay, my mistake. Okay. I'm just inserting keys is what I'm doing. So I wanted to go here and rotate, Shift X -1, boom. Now obviously rigging wise this isn't exactly positioned correctly, but I'm trying to get Mr. Big to demonstrate a little bit of attitude here. Okay, so now I've done this twice and both times the animation has not taken and it's starting to tick me off. So now I'm trying to figure out what the heck's going on here. Okay, and now that I'm throwing a useless dummy action in just to see why it's not working, then of course it starts working. Let's go back to the dope sheet. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to go to this key and put this here, go back here, and now let's do what we did before. Shift X -1. Okay. T key, constant interpolation is what we want. That's not bad, actually. That came out all right. Yeah, let's play it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is put the origin back here, hit select all, and then I'm going to scale this a little bit. Not quite. Whoops. Back here, again, scale this. Alright, the only thing I'm objecting to is really I want this to be a little tighter. So we're just going to put it on 2s. So that's good. I mean, that's pretty much what we wanted. Now, the one thing we probably could complain about is the shadow. The shadow on his neck really isn't changing, which is kind of silly. So there's probably more than one way we could skin that cat, but I'm gonna go into edit mode, and I think what I'll do is go like this. Okay, and my bad, I need to I'm making so many mistakes. It's just sad. Alright, I'm gonna get rid of this. I don't want that keyframe there. And that got rid of the whole body. Okay. Okay, so now I'm bumping into another, just something I need to remember because it's going to come up over and over and over and over again. What's on, what is on frame 0 versus frame 1? Okay. Now the fact that I just moved that keyframe and nothing happened would seem to indicate that most of what I want to keep is actually on frame 0. So, what happens if I delete this one? I can't delete that one. So yeah, this is a little bit maddening, frankly. Let's make sure this is on the shadows layer, and it's not. So the first problem we have is that the shadow isn't even on the shadow layer. Okay, so I'm gonna grab this and let's move the stupid thing to the shadow layer so it's where it's supposed to be. Okay, And then what I'm going to do is, just so I don't go nuts, I'm going to hit the star key and isolate the shadow layer. So now all I want to do is see where his head changes. And then what we're going to do is just shift this a little bit, like so. Okay, that's it. That's all we needed to do. So take the star key back off, Alt A, and now I'm pretty sure that if I play this, it's going to look about right. Let's do that again. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so now, how long do we want this to go? Probably about that. About 35. This sounds about right. So I'm going to slide this baby here back to 35. Okay, so if you were to factor out the amount of struggling with unfamiliarity, I think it's safe to say that getting to a final look that is quite satisfactory in production quality is faster and probably more effective in Blender 2.8 than what I'm getting in OpenTunes. I'm certainly not fighting with the fill operations anywhere near as much. Seems to be much more predictable. And in this case, what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to take this background drawing, or background painting, clean up these shadow stupidities around these guys' heads, but I'm just going to erase Mr. Big out of this picture and then just bring this in as a background image. So I'm not going to bother re-inking these guys. That would be a waste of time. But I do like the attitude Mr. Big's showing. That is pretty much what I was after. The one thing that's missing is the highlights on his hair. So I'm going to grab Mr. Big's head. I got to remember this. Always go into object mode and select that way. Okay, so now let's close up Mr. Big's body so I only see the keyframes. And it looks like there's only one. So this is something I find rather confusing. I think that there may be something in the preferences that forces Blender to always start on either frame 0 or frame 1. And it seems like you're able to go back to frame 0, but by default it's set on frame 1. So to me that's a little bit dumb. If I'm going to be able to go to frame 0, then all these keys should probably be on frame 0. The easiest solution at this point is to just roll them back. Just pull them all back. Okay, so that's good because all the animation was done at the object level, so that means any changes I make in the look of the art is going to propagate right through all the animation, so that's good. Now what I've been doing typically with shadows, or with highlights, is just putting them on the shadow layer. This really should be called shadows and highlights. So this is a highlight color that's not filled. Let's go to our drawing tools, and I think I want to just use my plain old pencil. I think. Okay, I don't like that. All right, let's add another layer. I'm going to call this highlights. Here's why. I guess I noticed this before and forgot about it. The highlight that's not filled really does not make sense as a transparent material, and the reason is because of what you just saw. When you scribble across it, the multiple layers of it are additive. So what that means is anywhere that your lines sort of have a corner, the highlight's going to be brighter, which you would never want that. So what we really need to do is make these okay, so now I'm going to say this is still wrong. So let's fix it here. This is actually very strange. The alpha level is at 1. Can't get any higher than that. So this should be totally opaque. So the problem would seem to be, I know what it is. I'm going to hit the Z key. Okay, the problem is here. This is just another one of these things you got to be aware of. If you're going to do highlights with a brush, as opposed to drawing a filled area, because like if I did a filled area like this, as long as I don't have any overlaps, that would work fine. Okay? But by gum, I want to use my brush. So what you need to do is have it be a solid color, and up here you really need to have no pressure on your strength. You can have pressure on your size, but the strength should be not pressure sensitive. Okay? Because then what I can do is go like this, and then just make this. Oh golly, hold the phone. No, we can't. Boy, that sucks. So that means that there is no way to make these strokes of uniform density, because they're going to double back on each other even if you make the whole. I would call that a bug, because if I'm taking a layer of solid color and making it transparent, it should become transparent uniformly. Now, just for kicks and giggles, I will take pressure off completely and see if that helps. Nope, it doesn't. Okay, so that's definitely problematic. Okay, so what that tells us, we might as well turn the pressure back on, because what that means is I'm going to have to do it like, I'm going to have to be careful. Or probably actually, see, the problem is I wanted to be able to use a highlight across the board, you know, on all colors, and it looks like we can't. So the way to do the highlight is to come down here, grab the color of his hair, and then make it a little lighter. Okay. That's still actually, even that has the same issue, which is kind of stupid because, alright, what if we do it this way? That's probably going to do it. Okay, so we want pressure to, so we're going to have to use a gray color. That's annoying. I really didn't want to have to do that. But you know what? Go to OpenTunes though and try it there. I mean, in OpenTunes on any given level, you can only have one color taking up any one pixel. So this certainly isn't any worse than that. But yeah, you want to be aware that there's some hokiness with transparency in your materials. That's okay though. I mean, that is not the worst thing I've ever seen. So as you can see, the highlight moves around just as we would expect it to. So that's good. So now all I need to do is tweak the background painting, and then I'm not going to use it as a background per se. What I'm going to do is map it to a plane. One of the things you can do in the preferences, in the add-ons, probably everyone would want to do this. Go to your add-ons, and it comes default with Blender 2.8. Import images as planes, and then what happens is, if you're in object mode, if you hit Shift A and you go down here to images, where is image? There it is. Images as planes appears in the menu, and it becomes pretty easy to bring an image in and map it to a plane. Okay, so now my question is, how do I actually get rid of the background image? Well, one could argue that it probably doesn't matter. Let me see. I'm going to go ahead and do a view, render image. And the background image is showing up in the render. Okay. Let's go to one of the other renderers and see if that still remains the case. It's just one of those things that you don't know until you know. Yeah, those guys are staying in the picture no matter what I do. So that means I'm going to have to, I was fighting with this earlier, is how in the world do you just get rid of background images? Are they tied to the world now? They don't seem to be. Are they? So, yeah, I don't want to waste time here fighting with that, so I'm going to end the video beforehand. But what I will do in this case is, let's go to image, images as planes. Hello, winky winky winky, winky winky winky. Okay, and we want to go to L, animate, image, it's in the, I'm sorry, not image, animate render, in the baked folder, and we don't want backgrounds. We want this one, and we need to put this in thumbnail version so we can find the picture we're looking for. And this is right after he says, but boss, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it's this one. Okay. And since we're in object mode, we should be able to size that up, and look, there they are. So now what we can do is take these guys. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and size them up a little bit. Let's turn this way. And what we'll do is let's hit the G key on the y-axis to just move this back a little bit. And then from the camera view, we'll, we don't even need to size it up. Actually, that looks pretty good. We're going to have to put the background in there too, though. So having done that, let's save the project file. And now, this is something I haven't done yet in Blender 2.8, is UV editing. So let's just, I wonder if you can grab a general UV editing. Oh, and Blender just exploded. That opening, creating a panel for UV. I'm glad I just saved my work. Creating a UV editing panel makes Blender just instantly die. So that's a little problematic. Is it not? Yes, it is. But again, not the end of the world, because what we can do is just do our editing somewhere else. So let's do it in Krita. We'll pull it into Krita, and while Krita's loading, I am going to go up here and find that same image. And now let's do a little cleanup on this. First thing we'll do is literally cut Mr. Big completely out of the picture. Okay, he's gone. And then we're gonna just do some fast painting. Alright, so we'll go brush, sample that. Okay, so we got those guys taken care of, and the only thing we need to do, sounds like Kyle's having a little too much fun over there. Well, he deserves to have fun. He earned his driver's license today. He took his driver's test and successfully became a legal driver, so that's cool. Always an exciting time for a young man. Okay, so now what we have to do is, unfortunately, there's like a whole story behind why this looks the way it does. I'm not going to get into it today, but I think what we'll do here, hopefully we can use the magic wand tool. Yes. Delete. Whew, that was easy, wasn't it? Can we do the same thing over here? Yes. Nice. Let's just keep going as long as it's working. Why fight it? There we go. Okay, and then there is a little problem right here we can see. So we want to hit Control Shift A, so we're selecting everything. Go back to our brush. Sample, well actually we want to sample that color right there. Just paint that in there. Okay, and then maybe touch this up as well. As long as we're here and we're doing it, we might as well just do it right. Right. So there's that, and there's that, and let's go ahead and clean up some of these noisy little hiccups. Got quite a few on this guy, don't we? And almost done. But you know, all this noise right here is totally indicative of what I was talking about with OpenTunes, because you get that all the time. I mean, that's like normal, par for the course, and it does become a bit frustrating because that's the trade-off in exchange for the fact that OpenTunes can manage palettes the way it does, so that you can color in your character and then change the colors after the fact, either directly or by actually swapping in a different palette. So that's a powerful capability, but the actual the management of the pixel data is a little on the winky side. Okay, so there's that. I guess we'll go ahead and do a little judicious erasing here while we're thinking about it. And almost done. Almost done. The pre-multiplied characteristic of this is also a little bit winky. So when OpenTunes renders out an image sequence, there does seem to be some strangeness with the way. It isn't pre-multiplying either, because if you go in and set the level in OpenTunes to be pre-multiplied, you still get this haloing effect. Whoops, that's not what we wanted. So, what can you say? It's a thing. It's a thing. All software has its idiosyncrasies. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just save this guy. And I would expect it's either going to update automatically here, or if we reload the scene, now Mr. Big is out of that picture. Okay, and we are in object mode, so we can hit go on the y-axis to move these guys back if we want to, but we don't need to move them back very far. Okay, so now another obvious question is, do we have some weirdness going on with the background image? I am looking on my other screen right now at my background images. And frankly, I think I know which one I want to use here. So I'm just gonna go here and do the same thing I did before. Image, images as planes, and now we want to go up a level. How do we go up a level in the browser? Up right there. Up a level. And we want backgrounds. And if I'm not mistaken, there's actually a lot of these are sort of duplicated, so I think we can use number 9. Okay, and let's size that up. Okay, as you can see in well, it's not Z space, it's actually Y space. Go on the Y. So we can move this back. And now as you can see, we have yet another problem. And the problem is that Krita did not save our image with the alpha channel properly, which is kind of weird. But let's go save. Okay, we have to go save as in order to get the dialog back up. 0102, or I mean, yeah, 0102. There it is. Save over it, yes. And now, let's see here. Store the alpha channel. Store the metadata. Force convert to RGB. So that means that apparently Blender is not interpreting the alpha channel correctly, which is kind of a drag. But that's okay. Let's go to our materials. And I've got to believe that this is just a matter of blend mode. I don't think that's it. Yeah, that's definitely not it. Well, wait, maybe it is. Additive? Okay, it worked. No, it didn't work. It didn't work. We can see through it, but we can also see through these guys where it's black, so that's not. Alpha clip? Okay. Okay, that's interesting. I'll take that. I've never seen this particular feature before, but that's Huh. Okay, that's useful. There you go. Alpha clip. And there's our shot. Okay, let's go to camera view, and it looks to me like both of these images need to be scaled up a bit. Or wait, no they don't. I can see the camera edge now, so probably the only, well, I don't know, I was going to say something about the color on his skin, but let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to Mr. Big's head, and let's go to the skin, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to sample that color right there. Okay, and I do want it to be slightly lighter, so let's take the value and just, let's go 0.9191. So it's slightly lighter. Okay, and then in Mr. Big, and actually, let's go to hex, copy that, Control C, so that we can go into Mr. Big's body, go to his skin, and just do the same thing. Okay, so that just kind of equalized the skin tones. Alright, and with that, we can save it. And we're going to render this sucker, and we can do it the fast way with viewport render animation. But there's one thing we want to be careful of. Let's go to our output settings. Yes, this needs to be L anime render. So I'm copying that from the other screen. Render, and this is going to be 0072, and our format is going to be AVI JPEG. 90% quality is fine. 35 frames is all. Okay, I can live with that. And let's render that baby. Boom. So there it is, rendering. And we have another instance of Blender open. That's our video edit. So as soon as this is done rendering, we're going to be able to add it into our edit. Where do we change in Blender 2.8 the ending frame for our sequence? Aha! Well, that's not correct. Is that correct? It is correct. There it is. Nice. Okay. So now we're going to go to our render folder, which you cannot see, of course. And there is our AVI JPEG. And by the way, it rendered out at 1920 by 1080, which was incorrect. But at the same time, it's all getting scaled in Blender, so let's give that a shot. Boss, I thought you said... Okay. Okay, I actually don't think I love the timing on this head move. So I'm going to re-render it. But that's okay. We'll save that. Close that up. And now we can go back in here in object mode. We want Mr. Big's head. We are in object mode, but this needs to be not grease pencil. It needs to be just dope sheet. Okay. So what I'm saying is, I really think I want these keyframes to actually be right back here, so the shot starts right out that way. But of course, that also means that in Mr. Big's body, we've got, well, diggity, oh, here we go. Yeah, so this needs to be 3, 4, probably there. Nope, it's one frame too early. Boom. Oh my gosh. Did I actually... Okay, dyslexia moment. There we go. Alright, that's it. File, save, view, and that's it, folks. I'm not going to bother cutting it into the animation at this point, or the edit, I should say. But I'm just going to go ahead and wrap up with that. And there will be more later. Definitely. Definitely.